I can't even remember what I'm talking about. Hi, I'm here at Disneyland. Producer. It's a producer thing. Some of the background for me and the rest of the producers group, what we do is we execute, develop, and create and produce a lot of the shows, parades, stage shows that you get to see around Disneyland. My background is most recently, I just produced the Toy Story event coming down from the El Capitan Theater. And Mickey's Halloween Treat I just did. And the reason why I cite those is because I cite those. Mickey's Halloween Treat. Good. Thank you. The reason why I cite those as examples because I'll use them as reoccurring examples through kind of this whole presentation to talk about how we develop, create, produce product here at Disneyland. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a really quick process discussion about how we find opportunities, what some of the steps are that we go through to create a product, and then go through and actually talk about some of the fun things we've done in trying to figure out how to name our products, and then go through family come and have families spend time together. And so that was where the initial direction that was given me when they asked me to come up with Mickey's Halloween Treat. What then we did is we started boiling that down and down with our marketing group saying, okay, well when should it be? Should it be a Halloween thing? Is that too scary? Yada, yada, yada. We go through that whole thing trying to figure out what it is. So then we figure out generally what the opportunity is. Then it's our job to create the shows, to actually figure out what you as an audience want to see. Now, what we do in that is we kind of do our best creative guess about what this is going to be, and we do something called a one-page treatment. That one-page treatment highlights all of the reasons why we think this is going to be the most exciting thing since sliced bread, and then you all buy it. So we create a one-page treatment, and then what happens is we give that to our Disney management. Now, before we give it to our Disney management, what we do is we go through an assets evaluation. In that assets evaluation, what we do is we take the creative treatment and we ask questions about it. What we ask is, do we have time? Do we have the financial resources? And do we have the people necessary to execute that product? So when we get to the answer to all of those, the answer is yes, the creative treatment is right. Then we go to our Disney management, we say, okay guys, this is what the idea is. It's this, it's this, it's this, and this is how we can do it. And they either say yay or nay. Now, if they say nay, they usually don't throw us out of the house. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a job now. What they usually do is they say, you know what, go back to the development phase. I think you guys missed the boat there. Or they say, you know what, go back to the creation phase. It's a cool idea, but you know what, it needs just a little bit of tweaking. So we'll go back to that phase. Then what we do is we go into an execution phase. In that execution phase, we've all agreed what the treatment is. We've all agreed that we have all of the resources necessary to do it. And then we go into execution, and that's where we start to bring in all of the people who take all of our wild ideas and bring them into the practicality of understanding what they'll actually be. I'll show you some pictures and you'll kind of see how we go through that design development process. And we do a lot of renderings when we do that. We're very visually related people, and as a corporation, yeah, everybody agreed. Mickey's Halloween Howl. Okay, Goofy's Ghosts and Goblins. That's not bad. You know, it's kind of goofy. Got to see Goofy at the administration building. He's all over it. Mickey's Masquerade. That's okay. Mickey's Prowl and Howl. Okay, here's a good one. Mickey's Tricks and Treats in the Tragic Kingdom. Press would have really had a field day with that one. Yeah. Disneyland, the happiest haunt on earth. Not too original. Mickey's Ghoulish Gala. I read this before and I thought it said Goulash Gala. Oops. Disneyland Boo. You know, the funny thing is, we were like that close to having that be the name. I'm serious. Ghost-tacular. Wow, that's creative. Mickey's Halloween Hoot at Disneyland. Okay, now we come down to the final runner-ups. Now, what we do is we're doing names. We develop all these names. We come down to our last certain number of them. We came down to the last final 3. And then what we do is we develop logos against all of those. Each name that we come up with, we'll develop, you know, between 5 and 10 iterations of a logo to, again, try to visually establish what the imagery is for our guest. So a couple of the last 2 final runner-ups were Mickey's Spooktacular and Mickey's Trick or Shriek. both of which were good. And what we had to do is go back in our development process and say, who are we doing this for? And the answer was we were trying to create a family kind of event. We were trying not to compete with Knott's Berry Farm because we weren't looking for the business that they're doing. What we were trying to do is to create a family-based entertainment experience. Both of these we thought had a little bit too much edge to them. They really didn't denote something that was really a piece of family entertainment. And we thought that if you did something like Mickey's Trick or Shriek, people really would come thinking that we're going to scare the bejeebies out of them, and we weren't going to do that. So we came down to the final version of Mickey's Halloween Tree. In here, on this logo, you can see Mickey's really happy. Interesting part about Mickey being really happy is we decided, you know what? This isn't enough edge to it. So what we did is we actually made Mickey look really scared in the final version that went out to print. So Mickey actually looks a little more, is approaching the logo with a little bit more trepidation. Okay, now we're going to talk about a few things that we... Wildfire includes some translucent, very bright, vivid blacklight paints, as well as some very bright blacklight lighting instruments. So what we're going to do is we're going to set off strobes as it went down Main Street, have a very large sound system to set off the booming thunder, and then at that moment we would turn off all of Main Street and turn on all the black light. Now, all this paint is translucent, so you can't see it in normal light, and what would happen is Main Street would be magically transformed. So again, as we did with the logos, we validated that against who we were creating this for, and we're creating it for a family audience. Now, imagine you're a family and you have a little kid, and you come in, huge thunderclaps go off, everything turns to a ghost town, and your poor little child hits the roof going, ah! Not a pretty sight. So what we would have done is we possibly had the possibility of actually having a detrimental experience for our younger park guests. So what we decided instead to do, because again we're creating a family adventure, we decided to bathe Main Street in yellows and oranges, very nice warm harvest colors, saturate Main Street with a great number of your favorite Disney characters, and include a scarecrow down there so you get kind of a traditional sense of down home, corn stalks, and that whole feeling that comes with a harvest festival. And again, we wanted to welcome you against the animation, and we would play on these three very large screens, animation, with a full orchestra on the lower half of the river stage. Pretty cool experience, you know, a full orchestra. You don't really get to see that every day, so pretty exciting. But the problem with this is we still have that huge gap. Even with large images and huge Chernobyls on these huge projection screens, there still was a vast difference or distance between the stage and where the guest was going to be on the land side. So in a separate development, we tried to figure out a way to bridge those gaps. And a couple of years later, what they came up with was a fabulous idea to put river rafts in the middle of the river. And again, this is imagery out of Fantasia from the Night on Bald Mountain, the ghost scene. Using the ghosts from that, putting them on the river, you can kind of see a hint of guests down here. Again, trying to bring the action down close to the guests and trying to span that huge gap that we had in the river. One of the challenges we have as entertainment producers is we're given a certain amount of assets to deliver a certain kind of show. We want to produce absolutely the best show possible for you, the park guest. So what we do is we use any trick we can. One of the tricks that we thought we could use is put performers on the Columbia. Again, these are ghost performers at the time. Put ghost performers on the Columbia to do a whole stunt show cool thing as a middle portion of this show. Starts to look like something that you guys know. Okay, when we set up a design conceit for our Disney shows, the difference between how we do shows at a theme park and how you do shows in a standard theatrical world is that in a standard theatrical world you have 90 minutes to build a beginning, middle, end, and you don't have a lot of young children who are waiting to get on Space Mountain. So at a theme park you've got about 20 minutes to do that, and within that 20 minutes you've got to establish a beginning, middle, end, take your audience through a storyline, and get them to an emotional ending of that. So one of the ways that we do that is to set up very simple storylines, the challenges of good versus evil. And this was one of those ideas of good versus evil, the mythology of characters. Now, what this didn't do is this did not draw upon our equity, which are the Disney characters. So we went back to some of our Disney characters. Now this is right after the time that Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg had started to turn out a great number of very successful animated classics, including The Little Mermaid. So they gave us a fabulous character for evil, being Ursula. And then you can see up in the back there, there's Maleficent as the dragon. And again, this is an artist's conception of a river show with these elements being involved somehow closer to the audience in the river and establishing some sort of stage presence in the back. And as the show would build in conflict, we would need segue sections. And those segue sections that we drew upon, again, going back to the Disney classics, we look back to the Jungle Book. And as you build your storyline, you build up the conflict at the beginning, you go into a plateau in the middle, and then you go up to a final conflict and a resolution at the end. So we're looking for the plateau piece in the middle of it. So one of the plateau pieces that we chose to look at imagery from was a Jungle Book with Kaa and with the monkeys. And again, these monkeys, you see them in Fantasmic, but here they're portrayed actually on kind of like Venice-like canal boats. So again, it's starting to get close to what Fantasmic looks like, but it's not quite there yet. In the final version of this iteration of the creative, what happened was Maleficent, and you can kind of see her in this picture in the back with the blue of the hair there, she spurted laser beams out of her hands, igniting the river and creating a final conflict. We needed a hero to save the day at the end, and at the time we were in the middle of our 60th anniversary, and Mickey was highly popular. I said, well, you know, Mickey probably should be the guy to do this. So Mickey ends up coming to save the day, and if you look at the logo here, there's Imagination. See, this was when it was still Imagination. Yeah. And again, drawing on the equity that we had in the Columbia Mark Twain, the Mark Twain comes and heads around the corner and has fireworks coming off it, much the way that it does in Fantasmic. So at the end of the show, what happens, it builds, water columns rise, lights spurt up, fireworks go off, Mickey rises in a glorious triumph at the end. Those fountains subside on the sides, and water fountains come up around the rest of the river, and with laser light we write Imagination. And that's the end of the show. So, the interesting part about all these pieces of art, they all look very similar to what you see today in Fantasmic. But the time period that these things were created over was about a 10-year time period between when we did the screen artwork to end up with mist screens, to when we had monkeys on canal boats, to having monkeys on rafts. So in this creative process that we go through, we're